My name is Marissa Quinn. I'm 18 years old and I work part-time as a diner server after school. People say a quiet house means peace, not mine. The quiet in our kitchen had weight, like wet wool. It pressed into the drywall, into your ribs, until you learned to breathe shallow and move softer, so nothing in you made a sound that might embarrass the silence. I was the middle kid, which in my family might as well have been a dimmer switch turned low. My older sister, Lena, lived in a constant spotlight, teeth white, hair shining, applause always arriving on time. My kid sister, Erin, was the baby, spilling milk with diplomatic immunity. And me? I was the pause between sentences, the missing utensil in the drawer you stop noticing after a while. Here's how our evenings went. The TV murmured to itself in the next room. A fork clinked, once. My father cleared his throat like it was a habit he married. My mother counted plates, not faces. When Lena talked, everyone leaned in. When Erin pouted, a solution appeared. When I said, "I got an A," the silence blinked, then settled back to work. People think neglect is loud, doors slamming, voices cracking. Ours was tidy. Birthdays slipped by like junk mail. Some years there was a card, some years there wasn't. The cake knife stayed clean, the candles stayed in the drawer. No one forgot on purpose, they just practiced not noticing until it felt like good manners. I tried all the tricks kids try. Extra credit, a spotless room, dinner on the table when mom came home late. I learned the recipe for a perfect roast chicken before I learned to drive. They ate, they nodded, and the quiet put its hands back over my mouth. There are two kinds of silence. The first is hollow. It echoes like an empty church after service, all the warmth already walked out the door. That's the one I grew up in. The second kind, I didn't meet yet. Not then. If you had walked past our house at night, you would have seen a warm rectangle of light in the kitchen window and thought, what a peaceful family. You wouldn't have seen the unlit candle in the back of the drawer, or the way I stopped asking to be seen because it felt like asking to borrow money everyone swore they didn't carry. So here's my question to you, since you've come this far with me. Where are you watching from right now? Your kitchen, your car, your living room? Tell me in the comments. I want to know what your quiet sounds like, and if you stay, I'll show you the moment I tested mine. I chose a Tuesday because it wasn't special. Ordinary nights hide big decisions better. I came home from my shift smelling like grease and coffee, set my bag down, and waited to be seen. The clock in the hallway clicked toward my birthday like it had somewhere else to be. No one mentioned tomorrow. No one asked me what cake I liked when I was little. It felt like watching a train pass a station that didn't exist. I told myself to hold steady. Maybe morning would be different. I laid out a clean shirt for school, slid my tip money under the mattress the way I always did, and tried to sleep. The house hummed, refrigerator, baseboard heat, TV glow under a door. That hum had more presence than my name. At breakfast, the table looked like every other day. Toast, a jar of jam with a spoon bent by old fights with the lid. Lena talked about practice. Erin asked for the car after school. Dad checked the news on his phone. Mom counted plates. I said, "Good morning," and set one plate down for myself. No one lifted their head. My birthday arrived like junk mail and settled in the pile. I ate my toast and worked on swallowing the part of me that still wanted them to remember. After school, I went to my shift and poured coffee for men who tipped in quarters and stories. I didn't tell anyone it was my birthday. Back home, the kitchen light was on. A pot simmered. The smell was good. I stood in the doorway long enough to be counted, if anyone was counting. Then I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand, the screen dark. I waited until midnight, then a little past, as if the day might run back and try again. There is a strange relief in running out of chances. At 12:17, I pulled the crumpled bills from under the mattress and smoothed them on my desk. Singles, a few fives, a tired 20. It wasn't much, but it felt like a door I could open. I packed a duffel, 2 shirts, my school notebook, a toothbrush, the photo ID from work. I didn't write a note. A note would pretend there had been a conversation happening all along. I didn't slam the door. I left it like a patient leaving an exam room, quiet, polite, already forgotten. The street was empty, the kind of cold that makes your breath visible. I walked to the corner where the bus line waited, the orange streetlight making everything look a little braver than it felt. The bus arrived with a sigh. I paid in exact change, sat near the back, and watched my house slide away through a film of fog on the window. The test had rules. I made them up as I rode. Rule 1, I wouldn't call first. Rule 2, I would wait for a mistake to be corrected. Rule 3, I wouldn't explain the experiment to anyone who hadn't noticed they were part of it. Morning became a seat at a bus stop with a paper cup of coffee gone lukewarm. Afternoon became a library where I could sit without buying anything. Night became a bench at the station where a security guard told me to keep my feet off the seat. I checked my phone until my thumb hurt. No missed calls. No, where are you? No, are you safe? The hours turned to days the way milk turns. Quiet, then suddenly obvious. On day 3, I bought a small notebook at the drugstore and wrote down every expense to keep myself honest. Coffee, bus pass, a sandwich split into 2 meals. On day 5, I turned 18 plus 5 days. It was a funny way to measure time, but it kept me on the rails. On day 7, I saw a father steady his toddler at the curb and looked away before the ache had time to settle. Weeks began to stack like plates in a diner, heavy, chipped, serviceable. I kept waiting for the text that would reset the count. It didn't come. A quiet understanding did. If disappearing was this easy, maybe I never belonged there. I got off the bus in a neighborhood that smelled like laundry steam and hot oil. Rows of walk-ups leaned into each other like tired men after a long shift. I found the address a friend of a friend had texted me and climbed 2 flights to a door with flaking paint and a brass number that had lost its shine. Raphael opened it with a grin and a towel over his shoulder. "You must be Marissa," he said, like he'd been expecting me all his life. The place was small, 2 rooms and a kitchen that tried its best, but it had a lock, and he put the key in my hand like a promise. The floor creaked in introduction. The ceiling wore a water stain shaped like South America. The radiator coughed once, then settled. It wasn't pretty, it was mine. We ate instant noodles at the counter because there wasn't a table yet. Raphael talked about cheap groceries and the laundromat 2 blocks over. He wasn't a talker in the way some people fill the air. He liked small kindnesses. He dried the extra bowl without being asked, then left it upside down to drain. Before bed, I spread my jacket on the futon he'd found for me online. I slept like you do after a long drive, one eye open, one hand on the key. In the morning, I walked 2 blocks and asked for a job at a diner with a crooked neon sign that said open, even when it flickered between letters. The cook's name was Bunny, big shoulders, soft eyes, voice like a sermon that knows you're tired. She flipped bacon like it was a skill you could measure. "Rule 1, she said, pointing at the corner booth. "You talk to table 13 like they're your favorite cousins. They tip like forgiveness." She didn't smile, but her eyes did. "Rule 2, she added. "Don't burn the toast. Gus will set your paycheck on fire." Gus was the owner. Pencil behind his ear, ledger under his arm, the kind of man who respected numbers like they were laws. He hired me on the spot because I could carry 4 plates and keep my face calm. "Toast is sacred," he said without looking up. "Coffee's a close second." The first day, my hands learned the rhythm that kept the room from breaking. Pour, listen, clear, wipe, repeat. I learned how to plate eggs without smearing the yolk and how to lean just enough to hear without making a person feel heard too loudly. My feet hurt. My pockets held more singles than dignity. I counted both anyway. That night, back at the apartment, I found a post-it stuck to the cupboard door. "You got this. R," it said in crooked handwriting. I didn't know a note that small could feel like a hand on your shoulder. I ate a slice of apple pie Bunny had wrapped for me in wax paper and cried for exactly 30 seconds over the sink, face turned toward the dark window like it might keep a secret. I registered for classes at the community college on a computer that hummed like it was considering retirement. Intro to computing, a general ed requirement at 8 in the morning, one night lab. The campus was a cluster of low buildings and determined faces, people with lunch boxes, baby carriers, second tries. The library smelled like paper and peppermints. That first week, I kept my head down and my notes neat, as if order could rent me peace month to month. Mel from the campus podcast asked if I knew anything about audio interfaces. I said, a little, and untangled her cords until the sound came through clean and warm. Drew from Lab B propped a broken server cabinet open with textbooks and called it Design. Lucas at the tech desk wore a scuffed silver watch and listened in a way that didn't make you feel like trouble for needing help. I wasn't ready to know him, not yet, but I noticed the way he noticed. At night, I walked home with the city in my ears and my name still my own. The apartment light was a small square on the wall across the alley. I turned the key and stepped into a quiet that didn't punish me for arriving. It had rough edges, like new shoes, but it gave a little each time I tried. For the first time, the silence answered to me. The days began to stack in a rhythm that made sense. Morning classes, mid-shift at the diner, night lab, then home to a small square of light and the hum of the radiator. I built my life like a brick wall, one even row at a time, not pretty, but plumb. On Sundays, I balanced a notebook the way Gus balanced his ledger. Left page, hours and tips. Right page, bills due, bus pass, a line for groceries. When the numbers met without a fight, I slept easier. At school, I learned to aim small and land true. One paragraph on the history assignment before work. One function finished in my programming class after. I stopped bargaining for perfect days and started counting finished things. Mel waved me into the podcast booth with a pack of crackers she called creative fuel. We fixed a hiss in her audio by running a dirty cable through a cleaner channel. Not elegant, she said. I shrugged. It works. We both smiled like we'd cheated the universe out of one more excuse. In Lab B, Drew showed me how to coax a dying printer back to life by reseating its stubborn cartridge and telling it sweet lies. Most systems, he said, holding a door open with his hip and a textbook, are held together by optimism and tape. I wrote that down where it mattered, the front of my notebook, under my name. Optimism and tape. The diner gave me a different kind of education. I learned faces, who needed coffee before hello, who wanted quiet more than conversation. Bunny taught me to move like I belonged, even on the rush. Eyes up, she'd say. You'll see the plate that's about to slide before it does. When the night slowed, she slid a slice of pie into wax paper and told me fruits and vegetables were a flexible category. I put it in the fridge with a note, Marissa, do not forget, and ate it after midnight at the counter, feet bare on cold linoleum. Fall tilted toward winter, and the window in my room admitted its flaws. Cold crept under the sill, so Raphael and I rolled towels into soft ropes and stuffed the gap. Home improvements, he said, straight-faced. We laughed because it helped. He left me another post-it on the cupboard before an early shift. You got this again. I kept the notes in a small stack, a paper ledger of kindness. On the nights I closed, I walked back with the city laid open, block by block. Street lights made second moons on puddles. Somewhere music leaked from a fourth-floor party. I liked passing through the edges of other people's lives, close enough to feel the heat, far enough to keep my own pace. When I reached our stairs, Raphael's guitar sometimes drifted through the hallway like a promise you didn't have to sign. Lucas started showing up in small ways that felt like big ones. At the library desk, he asked, "What are you working on?" and waited for a real answer. When I said I was stuck on a loop that ran one time too many, he didn't reach for my keyboard. He drew a tiny diagram on a sticky note and said, "Walk me through what you want it to do." I did. It worked. He nodded once, satisfied for me, not proud of himself. I noticed the scuffs on his silver watch and how he never checked it when I talked. By December, my hands knew the diner's morning rush without thinking, and my feet found the quickest path across campus even on black ice. My room felt less like a place I slept and more like a station where I changed trains. The towels at the window did their quiet job. The radiator coughed, then settled. I made my bed every morning to prove I intended to return to a life I recognized. I stopped hunting for signs that I had finally earned my place. The proof was in the ledger that balanced, the code that ran, the plate that never slid. Momentum did what permission never had. It carried me forward. 2 winters after I left, the campus walked like it had a stiff back. Snow angled across the quad, thin and mean, and the air made your breath feel borrowed. I was grading my own scribbled notes at the library desk when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years. Dad Mobile. The screen buzzed hard enough to shake my hand. I watched it ring until it stopped, as if the sound might turn into the words I'd wanted once. "We're sorry, we were wrong, are you safe?" But it didn't. A voicemail landed. I didn't press play. I slid the phone face down on the desk and finished helping a freshman reset his password. Routine first, heart later. Outside, I sat on the steps with a paper cup and listened to the building breathe. I played the message. My father's voice was careful, like he'd borrowed it for the occasion. "Hey, it's me, Dad. We were just wondering how you've been. Mom's been asking. Call us back." The words lay there like tools no one knew how to use. No sorry. No, we noticed you were gone. Just a vague reach and a clock ticking behind him. I put the phone back in my pocket and went to class. 2 days later, a text arrived from a number labeled Lena. "Dad's trying to reach you. You should call him. It's important." No details. No how are you. I opened her profile out of a habit I didn't admit to. There they were. Holiday sweaters, crowded tables, arms looped like a chain where my place had always been loose. I closed the app and went to my shift. That night, Raphael strummed the same 3 chords like he was polishing them. I stood at the sink with my hands in warm water and thought about the rule I'd made on the bus 2 years ago. I don't call first. It had kept me honest. It had kept me standing. Now the call had come, but the math still didn't feel right. On Friday, the messages stacked like flyers under a dorm door. Another voicemail from Dad. Another nudge from Lena. "Please answer." I didn't. I went to the library, checked in a set of books that smelled like dust and citrus cleaner, and watched the door like I expected someone to carry my past through it. Lucas noticed before I spoke. We were walking across the quad, snow squeaking under our shoes, when he said, "You've been quiet, more than usual." I told him the truth in a small voice that didn't want to rattle. My dad called. He didn't talk over me. He waited. "After 2 years," I said. No apology, just urgency. He nodded, hands in his coat pockets. "What do you want to do?" he asked. The question was clean. It made room to think. I went home and listened to the latest voicemail. Dad's tone had softened, like he thought gentler would be enough. "We should talk. Just 1 hour, please." I stood by the window, towel still stuffed under the sill against the draft, and let the radiator cough once before it settled. 1 hour sounded like a trap and a chance at the same time. I didn't owe them a rescue. I didn't owe them a performance. But I did want clarity, and clarity likes a clock. If there was a reason behind the sudden concern, I wanted to see its face. I typed slowly, then deleted, then typed again. I picked a coffee shop in the middle of town, no history, no corner to get backed into. I wrote the terms as if I were writing a receipt. "Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Corner Cafe on Main, 1 hour." I read it twice, then hit send. The phone buzzed almost at once. Okay, see you then. I put the phone face down, washed the last dish, and set it in the rack to dry. The room was warm and small, the good kind of quiet. I turned off the light and let the dark hold steady, the hour already ticking toward me. The corner cafe kept its promises: neutral light, low music, a bell that announced every arrival in the same small voice. I came early and took a table by the window, earbuds around my neck, hands flat on the wood to keep them still. The place smelled like roasted beans and something sweet that I wasn't hungry for. He walked in at 2:58, hair grayer at the edges, shoulders dipped like he'd been carrying a box too long. My father saw me and hesitated, half smile, half apology that never found words. He chose the smile. "Hey, Marissa," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look good." I nodded. I didn't order anything. He did, clearing his throat before and after, like punctuation could stand in for a plan. The bell rang for someone else. Cups clinked from the counter. I waited. "It's been a while," he tried. I raised one eyebrow. "We were surprised when you left," he said. The word surprised lay between us like a dropped utensil. "We thought maybe you were staying with a friend." Then the months passed and it got harder to... He searched for the right verb and came up empty. Reach out. He told small stories meant to sound like presents. How the house felt different. How Lena got busier. How Aaron asked about me sometimes. None of it touched the thing that mattered. He didn't say the words that would have set the table right. "We missed you. We were wrong." "Why now?" I asked, voice steady. He blinked. "What do you mean?" "Why reach out after 2 years? What changed?" His coffee arrived. He wrapped both hands around the cup like he needed proof he was here. His eyes dropped. "Your grandmother passed," he said finally. "The family's been strained. We're trying to reconnect. Holidays, you know. It'd be good to have you there." The reason walked into the room, sat down in my chair, and smiled at him. It wasn't me. It was function, glue. I leaned back and let the heat of the coffee he wasn't drinking climb the air between us. "I'm sorry about Grandma," I said, and meant it. "But I'm not the repair kit." His shoulders lifted, fell. "That's not what We just thought maybe..." "The problem isn't what you thought," I said. "It's what you didn't notice. For years." He stared at the window, at his reflection ghosted over mine. "We didn't know how to handle any of it." "There was nothing to handle," I said. "There was me." The bell at the door rang again. A couple came in laughing, coats dusted with snow. The room kept going. He tried once more. "Could you give your mother a chance to talk? I gave you both plenty of chances," I said, not unkind. "You didn't take them." He looked older then, not because of time, but because of the distance he finally saw. He opened his mouth, closed it. The cup between his hands had cooled. I checked the clock on the wall. The minute hand slid past the notch I'd given us. 1 hour. I stood, pulling my coat from the back of the chair. "I've moved on," I said. "Please don't ask me to fix what I didn't break." He flinched, small and real. "Marissa." "I mean it," I said. "Take care of Mom." I put on my coat. The bell rang for me the same way it had for everyone else. Cold air met my face like a clean cloth. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel empty. I felt the ground come up to meet my feet, solid and level. Behind me, the cafe hummed. In front of me, the street ran straight. I put my hands in my pockets and walked, the hour closing softly behind me. The cold met me first, then the quiet. I walked home with my hands deep in my coat and the cafe door already another closed book. On the stairs, Raphael's guitar found me, a slow line, patient and sure. In the kitchen, I set my phone on the counter and watched the screen like it might forget my number. It didn't. A message arrived before my coat warmed on the chair. From Dad. We should have handled things differently. Your mom wants to see you. I read it twice. There was no apology in it, only a softer tone. I rinsed a cup, let the water run hot, and waited for the radiator to cough and settle. When the next text came, it was Lena. Dad's hurt. You didn't have to be so cold. Cold. I set the cup down carefully. I'd kept a family warm for years with a match I was expected to strike again and again. The room stayed steady around me. Raphael drifted in, held up a grocery bag in the doorway. Pasta? He asked. Pasta, I said, and we cooked like we always did, elbows brushing, water rolling, steam fogging the window until the world outside blurred. While the sauce simmered, I answered. Not a speech, not a list, just the line I'd been practicing in my head since the bus ride 2 years ago. To Dad and Lena. I hope you're well. I've built a life I'm proud of. I'm not reopening old wounds. Please respect that. I put the phone face down and wiped a spoon mark off the counter with the back of my wrist. Lucas knocked a few minutes later with a paper bag and that silver watch catching the kitchen light. He held the bag like it might break, then laughed at himself. Noodles on sale, he said. Thought you might want a second round. Raphael played something brighter. We ate out of chipped bowls, the three of us standing because the counter made sense for nights like this. After dishes, Lucas reached across the narrow space and brushed a red streak from my cheekbone with his thumb. It was a small thing. It felt like being seen from the right distance. No price tag, no ledger. My phone buzzed once, then twice, then stopped trying to fill the room. The last message I opened that night was my own, rereading it like a promise. Please respect that. The line didn't wobble when I looked at it again. Days took their shape back. The diner asked for hands. The campus asked for focus. Mel slid a sleeve of crackers across the podcast desk and said, Fuel. Drew waved me over to celebrate a printer that had quit making its complaint. He pointed at the paper tray like a magician revealing a card. Optimism and tape, he said. Always. I wrote a clean function and watched it run without asking for permission first. At home, the towels at the window kept the draft quiet. I added another post-it to the little stack on the shelf. You got this, in my own handwriting this time. Not a note to start over, one to keep going. When I couldn't sleep, I stood by the window and watched the alley light make a square on brick, steady as a clock that doesn't scold. The calls tapered the way weather does, angry, then tired, then something you can walk in without noticing. A cousin sent a neutral, hope you're doing well. I answered with the same, no hooks, no road back. I learned how to put my phone down without bracing for what might land on it. On a slow Sunday, Lucas and I took the long way to the store. He didn't ask for a postmortem on the cafe. He asked what I wanted for dinner next week and if I'd seen the new bus schedule. He listened while I talked about the class that met too early in a room that smelled like mints. We came home with eggs and a loaf of bread that would forgive mistakes. That night, I made my bed with hospital corners and set a clean cup on the counter for morning. The apartment held the kind of quiet that lets you hear your own plans. Revenge didn't look like fire or raised voices. It looked like a boundary that stayed put, a kitchen with 3 bowls drying, and a phone that could sit face down without burning a hole through the table. The radiator clicked, then went still. I turned off the light and let the good quiet have the last word. Weeks slipped into their lanes and stayed there. The calls thinned, then stopped. I woke to the same small square of light on the kitchen wall and a cup waiting where I'd left it. Routine felt like a rail I could trust. Class, shift, lab, home. The towels at the window did their quiet job. The radiator coughed, then behaved. My phone learned to rest face down without asking to be the center of anything. Work gave me proof the world still ran on cause and effect. I poured coffee, plates landed, bills balanced. Bunny watched me slide through a Saturday rush without losing a step and said, "You move like you believe the floor will hold." I did. The floor had a name now. Rent paid, groceries planned, a bus pass that didn't bounce. At school, winter cracked and let a soft light in. I finished a project that had been pecking at the back of my head for weeks. Clean code, clear comments, the kind of work that won't make someone curse your name later. Lucas read it over my shoulder, nodded once, and said, "Solid." He walked me home through air that tasted like new metal. At the door, he didn't promise anything grand. He said, "Text me if you need bread." And it landed like a vow I could use. On a Sunday afternoon, Raphael tuned his guitar and found a melody he hadn't played before. I opened the window just enough to trade a little warm air for the sound of traffic 3 floors down. Mel dropped off a bag of stale cookies from the vending machine and called them archival material. Drew sent a picture of a printer behaving itself and wrote, "Miracles documented." My room, my friends, my work, they didn't fix the past. They made the present honest. Sometimes, out of habit, my mind tried old doors. I'd think about birthdays that had slipped by like junk mail. Then I'd see the stack of Post-its on the shelf, "You got this," in 2 handwritings, and the ache would do what weather does, pass. One evening, Lucas and I carried bowls to the fire escape and ate there like we had all the time in the world. The city spread out under us, windows flicking on in squares that looked like a language. He set his watch on his knee, the face scuffed and sure. "You ever want to go back?" he asked, not as a test, just a map check. "I went back for an hour," I said. "That was enough." We didn't speak for a while. The metal under our feet held steady, warm from the day. Somewhere below, someone laughed big and unafraid. I let the sound pass through me without taking anything it didn't owe. Spring showed up like a neighbor, noisy at first, then helpful. The towels came off the windowsill. We replaced them with a plant that tried hard. I added a line to my notebook I hadn't let myself write before. Savings. It wasn't much. It was mine. I kept walking the same routes and noticing new things. The bus driver who sang under his breath, the kid who counted cracks in the sidewalk, the woman who always bought 2 apples and nothing else. The world kept little promises all day long. A message from a cousin pinged once, "Hope you're well." I answered in kind and put the phone down. No drafts I didn't send. No speeches rehearsed for an audience that never arrives. I had given my side of the story to the only person who needed to hear it. Me. That night, I stood by the window and watched our square of light settle on the brick across the way. The apartment was quiet, not empty. The difference matters. I thought about the 2 silences I'd learned, one that punished, one that made room. I had chosen the second and kept choosing it, plate by plate, page by page. I used to think healing waited for someone else's confession. It didn't. It waited for my decision. So I made it, and I keep making it. Show up, set the boundary, build the life. The train moves either way. I decided to be the one driving.